Organized ki. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Jai Shri Gurudev ki Jai, Shri Prabhupada ji ki Jai, Shri Gaur Nitai ji ki Jai, Shri Radha Giridhar Bhagwan ki Jai, Nitai Gaur Premanande, Hare Hare Bol. So Hare Krishna. So while contemplating on this subject matter, the material anxiety, so I actually came across the Srila Prabhupada's quote. Srila Prabhupada, I think, spoke this on February 7, 1975 in Hawaii, where Srila Prabhupada says that spiritual anxiety means you are advancing in spiritual life, and material anxiety means you are going downhill. Maya is so strong that as soon as I'm sitting in a solitary place, then I will think of money and woman. Therefore, we should live always in the assembly of devotees and chant Hare Krishna and save ourselves from the danger of material fall down. So, Srila Prabhupada has very nicely summed up, this material and spiritual anxiety in a couple of sentences. And what actually Srila Prabhupada actually mean here? First, I would like to talk about material anxiety. And Srila Prabhupada is saying here, material anxiety means you are going downhill. So what that actually means? So actually, I was just, while preparing, I had a look at the definition of anxiety, how that actually has been interpreted in material world. The first actually meaning they have given is a feeling of worry, nervousness, or unease about something with an uncertain outcome. So I think that actually means I feel like it's more about actually describing our material anxiety, that we all feel at all the times, about the things that happen in our lives. And the second meaning they given is a strong desire or a concern to do something or for something to happen. And that ties quite well with actually our spiritual anxiety, what Srila Prabhupada talks about, that I will speak on later on. So, Guru Maharaj, Amrish Prabhu already shared this transcendental mellow, or what Guru Maharaj called this as a doha, so it has been actually everybody know about it. So, Chinta se chaturai ghate, ghate roop aur gyan. Chinta se chaturai ghate, ghate roop aur gyan. Chinta badi abhagni, chinta chita saman. So, this is very nicely, said. Actually, the chinta, the anxiety, is the actual killer, So here, the meaning of it is actually chinta se chaturai ghate. So chaturai means actually we lose the wisdom, when we are actually anxious, or we are actually thinking about the same things again and again, That normally happens when we actually, if anything, if serious event happen in our life, or we are actually concerned about something, that normally happens, And ghate rupa aur jaan, so it affects our actually beauty as well as health. We all know that. And chinta badi abhagni, it is very inauspicious. The chinta chita saman. So, chinta and chita, they are actually the same. Where chinta actually, Maharaj says that it burns the alive person, live person, while chita burns the actually dead body. So whenever we are in anxiety, actually we are burning ourselves, actually we are destroying our own health. That's what it means. So actually I was looking into the statistics because I showed this topic because it's very topical in today's world because of this COVID-19 pandemic and, whatever is happening around in the world. And it is actually been a very well-known fact that actually it has there is a sharp actually increase in mental health issues across the world because of pandemic and lockdowns. So actually the statistics that I got from the World Health Organization, that is quite old actually, probably this is before the pandemic, where it says that actually the anxiety, depression and stress have spread like an epidemic across the world. And anxiety disorder is today's #1 mental health concern. 1 in 13 people globally suffers from anxiety, and that's alarming. So 1 in every 13 people actually suffers from the anxiety disorder. And actually means the worldwide statistics is also very alarming, but actually I would like to share the US statistics because that is, supposed to be the most advanced nation in the world. But where it says that anxiety disorder is very common mental illness in US, affecting 40 million adults in the United States, aged between 18 and older. So that's about 18% of the population. Anxiety disorder are highly treatable, yet only 36% of those suffering receive the treatment. And people with anxiety disorder are 3 to 5 times more likely to go to the doctor and 6 times more likely to be hospitalized for psychiatric disorder than those who do not suffer from the anxiety. So actually this is very serious problem, and means I have experienced it, and I will share one incident actually a few years ago. I think when this pandemic was started, I think it's 2 years ago, and our company where I work, my previous company, they actually organized the session. They call it a mental first aid. So you know the normal first aid course actually, this normally actually train you how to do the first aid measures, but now they have actually come up with the mental first aid. So that's basically talks about people's mental state, and actually how to recognize that, if you're working with a group of people or even in a family situation, how to actually recognize the signs, if somebody is suffering from mental disorder. And basically what they did actually after the training, they actually trained us to actually develop a matrix where you can actually define your state of mind each day. So there is a green, there's a green section, there is a red section, there is orange section. So every day we come to the work actually on the board for each team, there used to be board, and we used to mark where we sit on that day. And depending on who's where, if you're in the red zone or in an orange zone or green zone, you adopt your actually communication strategy when you're dealing with that team member. So initially we thought it's very funny, but later we realized actually, the problem exists with everyone, and because the anxiety can come from anywhere, it could be the result of your work, it could be the result of your family situation, or anything that is happening in your life, can affect your the overall lifestyle. So the anxiety, it is everywhere. So actually, when actually it is such an alarming issue, and obviously everyone is looking for the solution, but what I found that actually the Bhagavad Gita teachings, actually they are very relevant, where what we realize that even we are such, actually we call ourselves the advanced civilization, but we define our mind as a monkey mind, So mind is actually root cause of all the actually mental concoction that goes in our mind. And as we know, mind is actually the master of our senses, all our senses. So we have this sense of sight, the sense of touch, the sense of, that we got ear to hear, the tongue to taste. And so mind is actually controlling all these senses. And so as a result, because mind is always concocting and is always making plan for us so that we can actually enjoy this material world. So it's always planning and concocting and actually trying to convince us that, if you do this, you will enjoy, you will do this, you will enjoy. And as we see that actually, if we get too much attracted to these actually material things, and we always end up in anxiety, trying to doing so. So we actually means Bhagavad Gita, actually, as we studied, we call this as a adhyatmic klesh, The misery is caused by one's own mind and body. So body and mind, both actually, they gives rise to innumerable problems, as we know. And actually the anxiety, so where this anxiety comes from. So as we know, in this material world, actually, we are in a conditioned state. So we're attached to many material things. We are attached to the money, we are attached to our job, we are attached to our family, we are attached to our girlfriend, whatever, boyfriend, whatever. So all these attachments actually means we have, and we are very attached. And actually, sometimes we cherish that we have all these actually possessions. And Prabhupada says that we are very proud of all these our material possessions, but we fail to understand that these very attachments are the actually root cause of our mental anguish. Because when we are in the state where we feel that we are going to lose these attachments, we actually fear. So we are under the fear that we are going to lose this or that, and that actually gives rise to this anxiety. And medical sciences always also talks about this anxiety. Means there are different kind of anxieties. They actually class accordingly, but normally the most actually alarming one, they think that actually whenever someone goes through the traumatic experience, or if something significant, anything changes in their lifestyle, and that gives actually put that individual under the constant stress, where they're actually thinking about the same thing over and over again. So this actually, there is a word for it. Actually, I forgot. Actually, there's a medical term for it. And I read this article many months ago where they actually described how this actually anxiety affects your health. So as you all know, actually means you may be actually the students of science, if you know. So you know our DNA structure, how the actually DNA is made up and how that is structured. So the end up of the human DNA, there is actually the tail, they call it telomeres. And the length of that actually telomeres actually defines the human health. That's what they say. And to actually maintain the actually length, I think there's an enzyme called telomerase or telomerase, that enzyme is very critical to actually maintain the health of that actually DNA or that telomere. So when you are actually under constant stress or anxiety, actually they say that the production of this enzyme in our body actually goes down dramatically. So, and that actually what it happens is that actually the telomeres, they get shortened. And they say that if the telomeres get shortened to a particular point, then actually it resulted into death. So it is actually proven medical fact. Actually, anxiety can lead to the death. There's a direct link. And when I was actually studying human development, where they actually also put the hypothesis forward, which is actually they say it is quite proven that if someone goes through the prolonged time of anxiety, it's normally followed by a physical disease, something significant physical disease, So if you're going through the constant anxiety, you're more likely to develop a heart problem, or maybe any anxiety or mental health issue, or even the diabetes and all that. If it is actually is a combination of factors, or your lifestyle and all that. So worry, it is not just actually affecting your mental state, but is actually affecting your physical health as well. So as actually Maharaj shared this, is the chinta and chitta. They are actually the chinta chitta saman. So we should not worry. As Amrish Prabhu previously actually taught us, devotees, as a devotees, we should not dwell onto the past. What happened in the past, we cannot change, but we can learn from the past, and we should not be too much worried about the future as well. But what we live, we should live in the present, that is within our control, how we act, what we do. So that will define our future. So that's how the devotee behave, and that is actually a very good learning from this Doha, what I actually wanted to share. So Bhagavad Gita actually talks about the mind, where 6.34, so Arjun Maharaj actually saying this. Chanchalahi mana Krishna pramati balvadradam tasyaham nigraham ne vayor ivashu dushkratam. So mind is restless, turbulent, obstinate, and very strong. Oh Krishna, to subdue it, I think, is more difficult than controlling the wind. So we all know that, controlling a mind is not an easy thing to do, So that's why actually Srila Prabhupada says that artificially controlling senses is not very practical, It's always, there is chance of fall down. So Prabhupada actually say that we have to change the engagement of the senses, So we'll come to that point later on. So rather than controlling, we engage the mind and our senses in the service of the Lord. That's how actually we change its actually engagement and quality as well. And that's what actually leads to the purification of senses. The Bhagavad Gita verse 2.62 and 2.63 actually talks about how we develop the attachment to our actually sense objects and how that actually turns into the actual anxiety. So number 62, Dhyayato Vishayan Pumsa Sangaste Supajayate Sangat Sanjayate Kama Kamat Krodho Bhijayate. So while contemplating the object of senses, the person develops an attachment for them. And from such attachment, lust develops. And from lust, anger arises. So what that mean, actually, as I said, mind is always making a plan, so actually he's always want to enjoy, and he actually want to enjoy through our senses. So he's always giving us, arguments or cross arguments, and making plans, so once you start thinking about the object of your senses, so that could be anything, it could be the item of a food, or maybe money, or your job, or the woman, or anything, so once you start thinking about it, you're already developed the attachment, so where actually the good example would be for actually, the parents when they actually expecting a child, so once they hear the news that they're gonna actually, your wife is pregnant, they already develop an attachment with the child, even that child is not born, is not in this physical world. Still, the attachment is already there, that's how the actually mind works. So, and when actually we develop the attachment to the sense objects, and if we actually then actually automatically lust develops, the lust is actually, what lust is, actually lusting after certain things. So it's a strong desire to have something, that is lust. So when we actually fail to achieve the actually, the things that we want or what things that we enjoy, then automatically we get angry. So that's where the anger, comes into place. And Guru Maharaj says the anger is one verse short of danger, So once we're in anger, then listen what happens. The next verse it shows. Krodhat bhavati sammoha sammohat smriti vibhramaha. Smriti brasmad buddhi nasho buddhi nashat pranashati. So from anger, complete delusion arises, and from delusion, bewilderment of memory. And when memory is bewildered, intelligence is lost. And when the intelligence is lost, one falls down again into the material pool. So when we are actually in an angry state, actually we don't know, what we're doing. Actually, it's a delusional kind of state, as Guru Maharaj says. Guru Maharaj actually means instruct us that when you are angry, either you keep your mouth shut or you walk away from that place. Otherwise, what will happen more likely, because when we are under that state, angry state or delusional state, as it says here, there is a bewilderment of a memory, we forget things, okay? And when our memory is bewildered, intelligence is lost. So bewilderment of memory means actually sometime actually, when we are in agreement, when we are in the argument with the, the person, even that person has actually served us very well in the past, we forget all that, and because in the heat of anger and the argument, we forget all these things, what they have done to us, and we will say anything that comes into our mind at that time. And because intelligence is also lost, we use our intelligence to make a right decision, right? We discriminate what is right for us, what is wrong for us. So because intelligence is lost, we're more likely going to make a wrong decision or say the wrong things. So actually that's how all these things actually, happens. And when the intelligence lost, here it says the one falls down again into the material pool. So actually all this anger, all this lust, all this greed, actually we end up into the state where we actually, suffer. We suffer ourselves, and actually we're actually causing suffering to other people as well. And we end up in a lot of anxiety in the end. And that will actually lead to the sinful activities. And again, we get a lot of karma out of it. And finally, if we do a lot of sinful activities, we most likely actually degrade ourselves to the lower spaces of life in next life. So, it can be actually means this verse is very, very important verse, and we can actually spend the whole class talking about it. But Actually, I would just want to actually give the reference to this. So material anxiety, again, chapter 16, actually, Srila Prabhupada, actually, I would like to give this reference of verse 11 to 12 and 13 to 15. So this is actually the description of demonic tendencies, So we are talking here about gross materialistic people, actually. So here it says, I will just read the translation, text 11 to 12. They believe that to gratify senses is the prime necessity of human civilization. Thus, until the end of life, their anxiety is immeasurable. Bound by a network of hundreds of thousands of desires and absorbed in a lust and anger, they secure money by illegal means for sense gratification. The demonic people thinks, so much wealth do I have today, and I will gain more according to my schemes. So much is mine now, and it will increase in the future more and more. He is my enemy, I have killed him, and my other enemies will also be killed. I am the Lord of everything, I am the enjoyer. I am perfect, powerful, and happy. I am the richest man, surrounded by aristocratic relatives. There is none so powerful and happy as I am. I shall perform sacrifices. I shall give some charity. Thus I shall rejoice. In this way, such persons are deluded by ignorance. So Srila Prabhupada has very nicely translated this. And text 16, verse 16. Thus perplexed by various anxieties and bound by a network of illusions, they become too strongly attached to sense enjoyment and finally fall down into a hell. So here it comes, actually, what Srila Prabhupada is talking about, the material anxiety always actually lead to our fall down. So this is actually means description of a very gross materialist. But if we think about ourselves, even we are actually try to purify ourselves and actually try to follow this path, still we are very much attached to these material things, and it is actually creating impediments in our actually progress in our devotional service all the time, So means what I have experienced, because it always holds up, if you want to actually do a devotional service, but we are too attached to materialistic things, we always feel actually limited by this actually all the inabilities, we couldn't be able to find time for the devotional things because we are very much attached to doing our material things. So it is actually affecting the devotional service as well. And text 21 says, these are the three gates leading to this hell, the lust, anger, and greed. Actually, as we discussed, there's all result into anxiety again. And every sane man should give these up, for they lead to a degradation of soul. So they actually here, actually means this verse defines the three gates leading to the hell, So lust, anger, and greed. Actually, that's very important point to understand here as well. So thus perplexed by various anxieties and bound by a network of illusion, they become too strongly attached to sense enjoyment and fall down into the hell. So that's verse 16 again. So we actually miss what we discuss here is actually what is the material anxiety, and what actually gives rise to the material anxiety. So basically it's our attachment to the material things and how it is actually affecting our mental health as well as physical health. And for aspiring devotee, it is also creating a lot of issues, it creating a lot of impediments in their progress. So material anxiety is actually means we have to be very wary, how we actually curb this anxiety and actually how we actually transform this material anxiety to spiritual. So that is the next point I wanted to discuss. So what is the solution? So we know the problem, there is a problem, there is a big problem. So normally we're actually looking for a solution, but this is a material problem, actually related to material things. And we cannot actually solve this by material means. Guru Maharaj says, actually is one of this melo, you will be definitely put into even more miseries and difficulties if you try to solve your material problems through material ideas. So that is one of the transcendental melo of Guru Maharaj, So obviously what Guru Maharaj is saying here is actually we cannot actually resolve our material things with our material ideas or material knowledge. We always end up in more miseries. And I was actually meditating on this point, how it is actually, how practically how we can understand, this instruction. And just actually I was thinking, and this, the COVID-19, which is very topical subject nowadays. And we know this has actually caused the havoc across the world, is still causing a lot of anxiety and grief to so many people. And now in modern science, they have actually come up with this actually solution of actually vaccines, the vaccination. And as we know, there is a lot of debate around the vaccination. There are a group of people who are actually, they are in support of vaccination. Means I have also taken the vaccine because we believe that this is going to save us. And there's also people who are actually, they're anti-vaccination. And there are a lot of people, they are very confused state, they don't know what is right or what is wrong. So they are actually hanging in the middle. So actually, this is causing a lot of anxiety in itself, with whether to vaccinate or not. And now actually they are actually rolling this actually vaccination for children as well. And I'm very much concerned, actually whether shall I actually vaccinate my daughter or not. Because I was trying to actually do some research on this subject matter, and what I say why they actually in the first place, why they didn't roll out this vaccination for children. And actually means there are some concerns about actually vaccinating children, you will get different answer and online if you try to research this subject matter. But what they normally say is that actually before they actually develop a vaccine, they have to actually test that vaccine on each age group. So normally I think it's very easier to get adults to actually, go through the trials, but for the children, it is very hard to actually conduct the trials on children. First to actually get the nominees who are actually ready to go through these trials, and that's why it takes long time to actually, come to the conclusion whether they're actually safe for the children. So, so as Guru Maharaj says that actually, the material problems and material solution, they both gives us a lot of anxiety, So actually the real solution is actually we should look into the, in the spiritual realm, actually we try to look into the scripture, what scriptures actually says, how we can be able to get rid of this actually material anxieties. Srila Prabhupada also said, actually say the same thing, where he says that so you cannot become free from anxiety by taking shelter of anything material. That is not possible. So the same point actually put forward by Srila Prabhupada as well, where he says that Sad Samudvigna Divam Asad Grahat. So this is a reference from Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 7, Chapter 5, verse 5, where Srila Prabhupada says, Asat and Sat. Sat means eternal and Asat means temporary. So we are eternal. Na hanyate hanyamane sharire. We are not annihilated after the annihilation and destruction of this body. Therefore, we have to take shelter of the eternal. Then we'll be happy. So long we shall take shelter of a temporary thing, asat, this material world, material society, friendship, love, state, community, nation, anything you take, they are not permanent. So you cannot be happy. But if you take shelter for security at the lotus feet of Supreme, then you are actually secure. So this is actually another expert from one of his lecture on this Srimad Bhagavatam verse. And that's very relevant here. Actually, Srila Prabhupada is actually making the same point that actually we cannot able to solve these material problems by material means. We have to actually take shelter of Krishna. So that is the only solution. So I was actually meditating on this point, and actually also came across one of the morning talks of Srila Prabhupada, where he discussed what is a spiritual anxiety. So first thing, actually, as we know that we are very much anxious and full of anxieties in this material world. And so far we believe that actually the only way to get out of this is going back to the Vaikuntha, So as we know, so going back to Vaikuntha. So Vaikuntha means a place where there is no anxiety. That's what we know, right? But point is actually, I was meditating on this point, and what I actually realize that actually we always say that actually whatever we have in this material world is coming from the spiritual world, is coming from Krishna. So if we have anxiety, if we experience anxiety in this material world, so it should be present in spiritual world as well. So otherwise, how it is actually existing in this material world. So actually, this morning talk, actually, Srila Prabhupada actually clarified this point that actually anxiety also exists in material world, but the quality of anxiety is different. So Srila Prabhupada has very nicely explained this point, and this is the actually talk that happened on 26th April 1976. So I will just read actually what is relevant here. It's quite a long actually discussion. So where it says that the walk began along the boundary road of the gardens, and Hare asked Srila Prabhupada, is a devotee always in anxiety when he sees others unhappy? Yes, Srila Prabhupada replied, yes. How to deliver them? This is Krishna anxiety. This kind of anxiety is welcome. Hare asked whether there's such an anxiety in spiritual world. Yes, in spiritual world there is everything, but the central point is Krishna. The anxiety is here in material world. We are concerned about where shall I get money, where shall I get woman. While in spiritual world, the anxiety is how shall I get Krishna, or is how can I serve Krishna. So the anxiety is there, but the quality is different. So that is the point actually Srila Prabhupada made here. Also, if we are in anxiety that we cannot perform devotional service nicely, is that all right? Srila Prabhupada explained that was indeed a spiritual, but full manifestation of such Krishna anxiety was rarely achieved. It was available only when one came to the platform of first-class devotional service. Then he is perfect. Janma koti sukruter na labhyate. Janma koti sukruter na labhyate. After many millions of lives of pious activities, one can get such anxiety. So what if one keeps falling down from following the regulative principle? So this is important point actually, the discussion, where it says the question is being asked, where they're actually asking if one is actually faltering from this path, from following the regulative principles, and obviously if you're not following the instruction and you get anxious, so is that a spiritual anxiety? So Srila Prabhupada replied here, Hare wondered, is that a material anxiety? Srila Prabhupada said, yes, that's not spiritual. Pushed Krishna wanted the issue to be clarified. So anxiety for oneself is a Maya. Yeah, Srila Prabhupada replied, that is material. So anxiety for Krishna, that is spiritual. So when we say actually, when we're concerned about ourselves, when we are actually very much engaged in satisfying our own senses, so that is Maya, that is actually material anxiety. But when we are actually concerned about Krishna, or how to actually serve Krishna, how to actually do something for Krishna, so that anxiety, Srila Prabhupada calls it a spiritual anxiety or Krishna anxiety. So Krishna anxiety was so desirable, Prabhupada added, that Rupa Goswami had advised that one purchase it at any price. But that price was high one. Prabhupada disclosed the subtle point with a smile. Ironically, he said the price for obtaining Krishna anxiety was one's anxiety to have it. And that anxiety was not available even after millions of lives of pious activities. So Hare inquired on behalf of pujaris present. So if we are performing deity worship and we get in anxiety how to make it nice, Prabhupada confirmed, yes, that is Krishna anxiety. If you became anxious how to worship the deity, how to dress the Krishna nicely, and if you remain, that will develop your anxiety for Krishna. Therefore, deity worship is essential. Exactly in time to get up, to offer Mangala Arati, to dress, this anxiety is beginning of Krishna anxiety. And then when you become perfect, you will always be anxious for Krishna. That is the perfectional stage. So actually, this discussion is very means important one. Actually, means I learned quite a few points here. So what Srila Prabhupada is saying here is actually, so deity worship is very important, and that is actually what we recommended. We recommend for actually most of the devotees who are actually starting out on this path. So initially, that actually here it says that devotees, they actually very anxious to serve Krishna, but that is not really case for actually someone like me who's just beginning on this path. I have to push myself to actually do these things, to chant, to do a deity worship, to do the offering for Krishna, or actually, do things for Krishna, because we are not sufficiently purified. Actually, as we studied in Nectar of Instruction, that we are in this disease condition, what we call it as this hepatitis, what we call actually the disease called hepatitis, right? Actually, just remember that this is a jaundice, and jaundice is a proper word. So jaundice like disease condition, where actually this actually service to the Krishna is so sweet and very nectarian, but actually we actually feel it very bitter. We have to push ourselves to do these things. But for jaundice, as a disease, actually for a person who is suffering from this disease, even if you give a sugarcane juice, which is very sweet, he will taste it as a bitter. It will taste bitter to him because he's diseased. But for the remedy for this jaundice is to drink the sugarcane juice. And when he drink that, slowly, he will be recovered from the disease, and he will actually start tasting the sugarcane juice sweet again. So that is exactly our condition in present state. We have to actually push ourselves to do these things. Whatever is the chanting or the deity worship or even the preaching activities. So many things. It doesn't come very naturally to me, at least. Because it's very disease condition at this stage. But actually the remedy to actually is the same thing. We have to keep doing these things. We have to keep pushing. And ultimately, actually, if we do this very sincerely, with the actually the grace of the mercy of the actually your spiritual master, the Shiksha Guru or Diksha Guru, or Krishna's mercy, we will come out of this disease condition where we actually think all these spiritual activities we're trying to do is actually, we think currently we think this is like a job, we have to do every day. We have to push ourselves to chant and all that. But actually, once we actually purify ourselves, all these things actually we will find it very nectarian, and it will become very natural. So that is a point to understand, because even now actually to prepare for a class and actually give a class, that's something not very natural to me in the past. It's very hard, actually it is also one of the source of anxiety itself, actually to prepare and actually to present the subject matter in front of people. It gives rise to a lot of actually anxiety, stage fear and all that. So, but as Prabhupada said, actually, if you're doing this for Krishna, so this is a good anxiety, it will not have any negative impact on your health or your mental state, it is only going to actually benefit you. And that actually, I will discuss how that actually happens. There are a couple of verses in Srimad Bhagavatam which actually talks about this. So the point here actually I wanted to share is that actually means I had a actually discussion with Ambrish Prabhu regarding the actually preaching things. We're starting up a program, and actually, actually we're taking care of the devotees going forward. So actually, once you do that, actually, I realized that actually means that we get into this anxious state, actually, preparing a class, actually inviting people to come to the class is also actually quite worrisome. Actually, you have to follow them up. You're always anxious whether they're going to turn up or not, and even if you are giving a class, you're always anxious because no one talks, you are the only one talking in a program. And you are coming to the state where you don't know that either you are what you're talking is not making any sense, or they are understanding it perfectly. So that's why they don't have any questions. So, the same dilemma actually means we had, when actually I started going to Ambrish Prabhu's class long time ago. And Ambrish Prabhu, I remember that he used to make so much effort to get us to talk and ask questions, So now actually I'm feeling the same thing, so that is actually realization now. So actually, so these things, they're actually very important and very actually purifying actually experience now, but we have to do that, So actually getting people to talk is a big, actually, you need to put a lot of efforts to actually make them comfortable and understand the matter, and get them to ask questions, so you can actually progress further, and you have to follow them up. So it's a lot of anxiety involved in this process. And that's why actually now actually I understand that transcendental mellow, where actually Maharaj says that, those who preach, they understand, actually, those who read do not understand, those who preach, they understand. So actually that's what I really realize, that actually when you actually do these services, then actually you learn a lot from it. Actually, you are the one who's actually benefiting, the most. That actually you get these realizations, and obviously because you are studying and preparing, you also actually get the proper understanding of the subject matter as well. So that is actually what I realized, that actually what Srila Prabhupada is talking here about actually serving Krishna, having that actually anxious mind to serve Krishna or please Krishna. Because Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita that actually one who actually preached this message, the Bhakti Yoga process to his devotees, is very dear to Krishna. So this is actually the main point, actually, one should remember. And if you look at actually Srila Prabhupada preached this message not to just devotees, but actually non-devotees as well, So he actually gone outside the box, he has taken all the risks. And that's why Srila Prabhupada is a pure devotee and is very, very dear to Krishna. So in preaching business, and that is actually mood of our actually Hare Krishna weekend program, the Amrish Prabhu is very, he's very much focused on actually teaching everyone and actually making everyone a preacher, the leader. And that is actually our mood. And I am just actually, started to understand, why it is so important that actually if one has to actually preach this message, because that's what actually Chaitanya Mahaprabhu has instructed us, He has said that on his order, actually, we should preach, and we should become a spiritual master. So even we are not qualified to preach, but whatever we know, we should preach. So as Prabhupada says, if you know A for Krishna, you should go ahead and preach that to the people, So that is the most important point, actually, of what I realized, that so we should endeavor to develop this actually Krishna anxiety, the eagerness to serve Krishna. That is very important. Where Srila Prabhupada also, there's another discussion when he gave the class on actually this is a lecture given by Srila Prabhupada on October 4th, 1968. I think this is very relevant here. I will read some of what is actually important points. So this is a discussion during the lecture where Vishnujan Swami, I guess, he asked the question, how do we render perfect service to Krishna? And Srila Prabhupada replied, by your anxiety. If you're anxious to serve Krishna, that is a real asset. Krishna is unlimited. What service we can offer to him? He has got unlimited servant also. What service he requires from you and me? He is perfect in himself. He doesn't require any service. But if you're anxious to serve him, then he does not refuse. That is his mercy. That is his magnanimity. So the more you increase your anxiety to serve Krishna, the more it becomes perfect. It's unlimited. Your anxiety, you become unlimited. So there is a competition. The more you serve Krishna, more he accepts you and more he gives you intelligence. So actually it's very important instruction, to actually means Krishna as a supreme personality of Godhead, he has all six opulences, he has everything. And Srila Prabhupada quoted here that he has unlimited servant as well. So is he really actually after our service? He's not actually. But if you want to actually serve him, then he's very merciful that actually he accepts our service. So we have discussed this point in the past as well, where actually, just a few weeks ago, we discussed the Lord Ram, actually when he was actually, preparing to go to Lanka, So he accepted the service of Vanaraj, Vanar Sena, and he accepted service of everyone who actually willing to serve him at the stage, where Amrish Prabhu shared that realization that even the small ant, he wanted to serve Lord Ram by carrying a, small grain of actually the sand to build the bridge. So that is actually a point to understand. Even what we actually, whatever service we're trying to do, even it is not so great, or even if it's very small service, still Krishna is so merciful that he will accept it, So that is the actually mercy of a Krishna. So by all means, whatever way we can able to actually render a service to your spiritual master or your Shiksha Guru or Diksha Guru or to Krishna, we should do it. And the next point, Srila Prabhupada share here is, this is evidence from Srila Rupa Goswami, our Acharya, where he says, Krishna Bhakti Rasa Bhavita Mati Kriyatam Yedi Kutopi Labhyate. So, if you can purchase this sense, your sense of loving Krishna, how I can love Krishna more and more, this anxiety, if you can purchase this mati means intelligence. It is very nice intelligence. Krishna Bhakti Rasa Bhavita Mati. So this state of mind, I will serve Krishna. If you can purchase this state of mind anywhere, please immediately purchase it. The next question will be, all right, I shall purchase. What is the price? Do you know? Yes, I know what is the price. So Srila Prabhupada is saying, what is that price? Laulyam, simply your eagerness. That's all. Laulyam ekam mulyam. That I can have. Na janma kotibhis sukritibhir labhyate. This eagerness to love Krishna, this is not available even after many, many births. So if you have a pinch of that anxiety, how I can serve Krishna, you must know you are the most fortunate man. A pinch only, laulya, this anxiety, how I can serve Krishna, it is very nice. So what Srila Prabhupada is saying here, that actually our eagerness, to serve Krishna, one should desire, having that desire to serve Krishna is very, very important. And Srila Prabhupada is saying that this desire or anxiousness to serve Krishna, one cannot have it even after millions of birth of doing the pious activities. So that's how important it is. Sometimes we take it as granted. So the point is actually we have come into the contact with the Srila Prabhupada and finally in the contact with his guest Amrish Prabhu and his program. So we are getting all this opportunity to serve Krishna. So we should be very, very thankful. Whoever is actually giving us this opportunity or giving us this state of mind or this actually teachings that actually our only aim, to in this life is to serve Krishna. So that is our real constitutional position as a soul, that as we are actually eternal servitor of the Godhead. And that is the point here, So we should be actually develop this anxiety to serve Krishna. So here it is saying that the eagerness to serve Krishna is very important. And I was going through the next instruction and we studied this verse as well, the text 3. That explain this point. Ussahat nishya dhairyat tattat karma pravartanat sanga tyagat sato vritte shadbir bhaktir prasiddhiti. So there are 6 principles favorable to the execution of pure devotional service. The first one is the being enthusiastic. And second one, endeavoring with confidence. And the third one is being patient. So first 3 is actually sums up what Srila Prabhupada is trying to say here. The eagerness to serve Krishna. One has to be very enthusiastic and one has to endeavor with confidence, So enthusiastic is all right, one should actually be very enthusiastic to serve Krishna. But actually that enthusiasm has to be consistent, to maintain that on day-to-day basis is very hard, We can actually lose that interest very quickly. So one has to become very patient as well. So as actually we have been taught, any endeavor is successful when it will become consistent, It has to be actually performed on daily basis or at a regular interval, whatever you're doing. And then it becomes the actual success. So this eagerness to serve Krishna is very, very important. So that is what actually Srila Prabhupada is actually termed this as actually Krishna anxiety, you know. So anxious to serve is a strong desire to serve is very, very important. And so we should actually change this actually desire, you know, our material desire to this spiritual desire. As Srila Prabhupada, as Guru Maharaj says that actually, you know, for every material desire, you know, there is a next body is ready for us. So if we actually stuck with this point of actually enjoying our own senses and actually and satisfying our own desires, then we are certainly going to get the next body, you know, and we're not really sure that is going to be human life, or we can even degrade ourselves to the, you know, the animal kingdom. So that is a risk. So this Krishna anxiety is very important. And as we discussed this point of actually material anxiety. So with this material anxiety of actually, so whenever we focus on actually satisfying our own senses, that's actually gives rise to this material anxiety, and that's killer in itself, you know, as we discussed, you know, how it will affect our physical and mental health, and there is nothing to gain from. But with this spiritual anxiety, we have everything to gain. There is a scriptural references in Srimad Bhagavatam. I will just actually read this translation because of a time limit, where it is says that actually, Canto 1, Chapter 2, verse 17. Sri Krishna, the personality of Godhead, who is the Paramatma, super soul in everyone's heart, and the benefactor of a truthful devotee. So this is important point where it says the benefactor of the truthful devotee. So one who is very anxious to serve or sincerely serving Krishna, you know. So where the Krishna cleanses the desire for material enjoyment from the heart of a devotee who has developed the urge to hear his message, which are in themselves virtuous when properly heard and chanted, you know. So Krishna actually, as we also study in Bhagavad Gita, you know, actually when you render loving service to Krishna constantly, tesham satati yuktanam bhajtam priti parvakam dadami buddhi yogantam ena mam upyantite, you know. So one who is actually, you know, rendering service very lovingly, you know, for that devotee, Krishna actually gives the intelligence from within the heart, you know. So with that intelligence, we can actually, you can able to break these shackles of material desires, you know, as it is confirmed in the same verse. And actually that will make our actually return back to home easier. The next verse, 18, it says, this is a verse we actually always recite. Nashta prayesho bhadresho nityam bhagavata sevaya bhagavati uttam shloke bhaktir bhavati nashtaki. So by regular attendance in classes on Bhagavatam and by rendering of service to pure devotee, all that is troublesome to heart is almost completely destroyed. And loving service unto personality of Godhead, who is praised with transcendental songs, is established as an irrevocable fact. So by rendering service, you know, to a pure devotee, or actually, you know, following the instruction of Bhagavatam, you know, it will help us to actually destroy whatever is troubling our heart. So all these material things, you know, actually our attachment to this material thing, or our anxiety, that actually this service, this devotional service, that will actually help to actually destroy all these anarthas that we have in our heart. And the third one, that's 19, it says, as soon as this irrevocable loving service is established in the heart, the effects of natures of modes of passion and ignorance, such as the lust, desire, hankering, disappear from the heart. And then the devotee is established in goodness and he becomes completely happy. So this is the point, actually, you know. So when you follow this process given in Srimad Bhagavatam and Bhagavad Gita, and the point is the same, we're coming to the same point of actually the importance of devotional service, you know, having this anxiety or anxiousness to serve Krishna lovingly. And that is the solution to actually our material anxiety as well, you know. That's how we get rid of all the anarthas from our heart. And that is the only remedy to actually make ourselves completely happy, you know. So as Srila Prabhupada says that we have to take shelter of eternal, you know, that is Sri Krishna, because we are eternal. And that is actually permanent solution to all our problems. So yes, the point is actually we should actually make, by all means, we make efforts to actually develop this Krishna anxiety, and this will actually will save us, and we should develop a taste to chant his holy name. So Hare Krishna. So Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Chant and be happy. Hare Krishna. Thank you.
Oh, very nice. Hare Krishna. Shital Prabhu, that's a very nice class. Very nice. With a lot of punches, very practical, a lot of Shastra, very nice. Anxiety in the service of Krishna. We all have to become anxious in serving Krishna. Very, very nice. Thank you very much for nice realizations and sharing it with us.
Thanks for the opportunity, Prabhuji. Actually means this opportunity to actually give the class, so I learned myself a lot from actually studying Srila Prabhupada's lecture, So this always purifying. So actually, thank you for actually opportunity. Yeah.
No, thank you to Srila Prabhupada. This is a proof that Srila Prabhupada started an institution, and with studying those books of Prabhupada sincerely, one can learn and one can deliver himself, one's own self, and one can deliver other people also. This is where it's a proof where this movement is going to continue. It's a movement. Very nice. Now, anyone like to say any realizations or ask questions? Please feel free. You're a little above time, but I think it was worth it, and it will be worth it, your questions or realizations also. Please feel free. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Srila Prabhu. Thank you very much for your very nice class about spiritual and material anxiety, and in particular, the anxiety for Lord Krishna to be anxious to serve Lord Krishna. It's a very important point, and you very nicely referred to Shastra to reinforce that point. So thank you very much, Prabhuji, for a nice class. I just have a question that in terms of, let's say, material anxiety, because I studied psychology at university, and there's always a talk in terms of mental disorders about nature versus nurture. So we talk about whether any disorder, let's say anxiety, whether that's inherent, whether that's a genetic issue, or whether that is an environmental issue. So when you were speaking on anxiety from a material standpoint, obviously we talk about circumstances in one's life, and these external environmental issues that affect someone, which cause them to be anxious. There's actually a lot of evidence that suggests that anxiety is genetic, and that a lot of people are predisposed towards feeling anxious, towards feeling this worry, where when it's a skewed understanding, where it's actually not something that one should feel anxious about. And then there's various treatments, etc., that go along with that. So my question is, Prabhuji, that for someone, say, who is naturally or predisposed towards anxiety, how hard or how can they remove their material anxiety? And as you say, it's through attachment, through feeling attached towards, let's say, your goals, or feeling attached to the situation. But for someone who is predisposed towards it, how can they curb their material anxiety, and then in that way feel that empowerment towards converting that and cultivating that to spiritual anxiety? So yeah, that was my question for Hare Krishna.
Well, that's quite tough question to answer, but yeah. Well, actually, this is my personal experience. Actually, you put me on a spot, so I will share this realization that actually, when I actually started on this path, I started coming to the programs, So at that stage, I myself actually experienced the anxiety disorder. Actually, means I realized this long time ago, but I did not disclose it so long, to anyone. And because of this actually long-term anxiety, there's a word called syndrome called OCD, obsessive compulsive disorder. You may have heard. So this disorder, actually, I have experienced it, and the only person I discussed that was my actually cousin, who's a neurologist, and we had this discussion, and I said, I know there is a problem with me, and where I think, and it's a repetitive thought, the same thing, you cannot get out of the cycle. And I used to experience this. And I looked into, I myself researched, there is a cognitive therapies, and there is also chemotherapies also available. And I said, I'm not going to going on the route of chemotherapy, and I studied myself this human development. So I know what is the exposure therapy and all that. So I try to practice it myself, and it helped me to a certain extent. But actually, what I experienced, actually, that these problems have roots back into your past, actually as a child, if you actually gone through, as a chronic, chronic, if you're exposed to long period of time where you've gone through the anxiety, that's where actually it sets in. And the problem is, it could be, the result of your past karma as well, as you say, if somebody's nature, is predisposed to this anxiety, so that could be, as a subtle body, we carry our nature with us from our past life, So as you see, when children they born, some are actually they are extrovert or some are introvert, so that's their nature, and that's coming from their past life with them, That's why it is very hard to change somebody's nature. So that could be the result of your past practice as well. But in my case, actually, when I started following this, started coming to the programs and I started chanting, I even had a difficulty chanting initially, I couldn't able to finish my rounds very quickly, It used to take 3 hours to complete my 16 rounds, long time. And even actually doing the deity worship, because I experienced this OCD syndrome, I used to do things in very ritualistic way, has a defined pattern and how I do things. I still do it, to be honest. But actually, what I did, it really helped me. Actually, I started chanting. All the anxiety levels of mine, they gone down considerably. It became very manageable. And that was my actually practical experience. Actually, how I came out of this, because the field that I work in, and the position that I work in, actually, I thought about this. Actually, there was always because you always suffer on account of the anxiety disorder. Because and at one stage I thought about actually getting a professional help as well. But again, I thought and I said no. I said, if I disclose this, it will actually affect my professional career, and it will actually, the people will always be judgmental. But whatever actual realization I had from the chanting, and it does help. And I carry on chanting, and it become very easier. It's almost that now I don't feel it at all. So that's what I experienced. Chanting does help actually, because one thing that happens is one of the things you get into the anxiety, the repetitive thinking, is because you are very attached to the result of your activity. As Bhagavad Gita talks about it, because whatever you do, you always fear the result, right? So if you're actually appearing for the exam, you're always already under a lot of anxiety whether you're going to pass or fail, whether you're going to obtain the required grade or not. It's a simple example. Applying for the job or going to the job interview, you're already under too much pressure, So even if you're actually, all the stuff, actually to appear there, go to the interview and actually market yourself become a big issue, because you're already under a lot of stress and anxiety. But when you try to implement this, actually all you can do is actually put the best, put forward, best efforts in, and leave the result to the Krishna, And when you leave the result to the Krishna, then you become anxiety less, basically. As Srila Prabhupada says that actually normally we actually take Krishna as our father. That means actually, Krishna, you supply all my needs, I'm dependent on you. So Krishna takes all the anxiety to take care of you, isn't it? But where Srila Prabhupada says that, the spiritual anxiety, when you actually take Krishna, you are taking care of Krishna as your child, as Mother Yashoda did, then actually you are worrying about Krishna all the time. If Krishna fall down here, if he puts the fire, hand in a fire, or the demons are always coming to kill him. So Mother Yashoda was always anxious about Krishna, even is because she was treating him as his own child. But for us, actually, we depended on Krishna as our own father who's taking care of us. So actually, the having faith in Krishna, it does help. And the chanting, I cannot explain that in word how chanting helps, but it did help me. Actually, it did help me a lot to manage my anxiety levels. And it did help me to actually conquer this actually stage fear. So doing presentation, actually, going to the board meetings, and actually you have to actually present your matter, and get the support and all that. I couldn't able to do that before, But I think with all the training that I received during the program and Amrish Prabhu and all that actually melos from, the Guru Maharaj and Bhagavad Gita instruction mainly, So I think all this philosophy, and you understand, why you are suffering, the actually knowing the cause, because, obviously you're not crazy because you know why you're suffering, right? Normally crazy person, they don't know why they're suffering. But when you know why you're suffering, then you know what is the solution. And actually, as we just discussed, we don't really have a actually material solution to this actually material issues, we have to actually go to the actually spiritual things to take shelter. So that is what I realized, Prabhuji. Actually, if you means having that faith in the holy name and actually this spiritual process, definitely I think it helped to heal, mental disorder as well as your material problems as well, as we means I'm pretty sure everyone has experienced, material problems, they just disappear or, things fall in place. So is that, Prabhuji, answers your question? I'm not sure, but maybe Amrish Prabhu can elaborate on that. I'm not really qualified to answer. This is very actually good question, actually. What you...
No, thank you, Prabhuji, for answering that. I'm sorry to put you on the spot like that, but I do appreciate very much you sharing your personal experience, because it's definitely not easy for anyone to deal with it, but for you to come out of it and, for you to find that chanting really helped you, is I'm sure a lot of people find that very inspiring for them as well. So thank you, Prabhuji. And yes, your answer was very nice. It cleared some concepts for me as well. Thank you, Krishna.
Yes, thank you, Prabhuji. You're on mute, Prabhuji, I think. Yeah.
Oh, sorry, Hare Krishna. Yes, I think what you explained is very, very nice. There is no better, I could not have answered this question any better than what you have done. In fact, you are far superior because you have given your personal experience. And there is no better example than personal experience, So I'm sure this will help and encourage so many of these new people, new devotees, budding devotees, who can also get benefit from it. Everybody faces anxiety in their lives, small and big and small. We all are very anxious. And what you said about your chanting has helped, and the Bhagavad Gita, it is very practical. So far, it's just theory, but it is very nice. So all the best to you. Hare Krishna. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Prabhuji.
Okay. We'll wait for 10 more seconds if anyone has to say anything. Okay. Hare Krishna. So thank you very much once again to Sridhar Prabhu for a very nice class, wonderful class. And I'm sure everybody got out of this class, and we've come out of it a bit wiser. So wonderful. Thank you very much. So those of you who are following us on YouTube, we will be now disconnecting just for about 20 seconds and joining back again on our YouTube channel. So don't go away. Krishnadas, can you sing Jai